Call this Altoona City Council meeting to order for Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020. We'll now have a moment of silent prayer. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Linda, would you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Butterbaugh,
Here.
Councilman Kashadi,
Here.
Councilman Carper,
Here.
Councilman Ickes,
Here.
Councilwoman Jordan is absent. Councilman Kelly,
Here.
Mayor Pacifico.
Here. Okay, we have a presentation on the agenda tonight from the Police Pension Board, and here with us is John and Terry Carnicella.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. We're here to address the recent proposals that the Council and Mr. Decker had requested. We wanted to tell you why our board voted against Marquette, while the other two seem to have voted for them. Marquette is a fine company, but there are several problems we found with the RFP process. The original bids were supposed to be for both managerial and custodial in the RFPs, but that wasn't included in Marquette's, and several other RFPs did not have the custodial investment services listed as Wells Fargo did, which would be additional costs that aren't listed in the proposal. Also, we were under the impression, at least I was, I've been president of the pension fund for about 22 years now. And before that, I was an active member of the pension for 50 years. So total, 20 and 30. And at no time has the city ever stated that we shouldn't go ahead and do RFPs, and we weren't in charge of our own destiny as far as our managerial services were concerned. Mr. Decker quotes in the ordinance the council has the authority over the board, but that's with the we assumed, and for 50 years it's been that way, we assumed that the council had to act by ordinance to change anything with the police pension fund board, is the way it's set up. Mr. Decker says, no, that's not so, that the city council always has and had control over that board, but no one in that entire time has ever used that board's position to change. We fired a money manager back in 1996. The manager at that time was C.S. McKee. They came to city council wanting to know how the pension board had the authority to fire him. And the council said, if you read the ordinance, the police pension fund runs its own entity when it comes to running the pension. So we naturally assumed that all these years, without the city's involvement, that we still had the right to do that. When Mr. Decker approached us last year about the RFPs, we hadn't had one done. We're the only board of the city to have an RFP, the police pension fund, the fire fund, and a non-uniform fund. We're the only ones that ever sent out RFPs when we hired Wells Fargo back in 1997. We assumed that they were doing a good job for our fiduciary responsibility. When we were making money, we went from $18 million to $40 million. We thought that was good, but Mr. Decker says that the rates should be much higher. I don't know how, unless you increase your risk over your reward. You know, when the markets go down and you're in a high risk thing, you're going to take a beating. So we tried to balance. We're 55-45. We tried to balance our portfolio to keep us on an even keel. So when we lose money, we don't lose near as much like in 2008, when the state had to step in and give us that period of time where you didn't have to pay all the MMOs at one time because it was such a drastic figure. They allowed us to spread that over 2 or 3 years to compensate for that. Well, we don't want that to happen. So we've been trying to manage the money in the fund for the long haul. We're responsible for, and the council knows this, I'm not beating a dead horse here, but the council knows we have to have pensions for any active member that hires in the police department now, when they retire. So we're in this for years and years, not just the next 10, 15, 20 years. Well, just having said all that, getting back to the reason why I got ahead of myself here, getting back to the reasons why we voted against that. The local representation we have with Wells Fargo has an office here. They had it downtown at the Gables building, then they moved out to Hollidaysburg. But whenever I need something from them, I go to those people. I can call them on the phone. I can talk to the people in the office. I can go see them. And I'm not going to have that capability with Marquette. Also, Mr. Decker, there was some misunderstanding about who would pick the custodial service for the police pension fund, for all the funds, I guess. Mr. Decker thought that our board should have a say on if we did that or not. The contract, as I read it from Marquette, states that they'll pick the custodial service, and our board won't have any say in that. Also, other than the original asset allocation, our board has no input into what the allocation is going to be after we sign on, which then we would assume have the fiduciary responsibility, which is, if I'm not having any say in how we're investing the money, how can we be fiduciary responsible if they screw up? To be honest, just the way it is. Well, when I hired Wells Fargo, I made sure that they were local, of course. They had the custodial services, and then I went ahead and hired another consultant because there's a lot that goes on with the pension fund through the Pennsylvania Auditor General Office. We get audited every other year, and for years we had findings, the city had findings against them because we didn't know some of the laws that were pertinent to the new pension funds in the Act 205. We hired Steve Feaster Associates. Steve was a supervisor for the Attorney General's office who lost his job in the change of politics. I saw that and I hired him to be our consultant to keep us out of the hot water that we were getting into. And since we hired him, we've only had one, and it wasn't a finding, it was a notation that when we did our police contracts, they had to be put into an ordinance. And when we did that, that took that away, so we haven't had any for years. No audit, no findings, nothing that was bad for the city. So we've been trying to keep everybody on an even keel and do our best to keep our fiduciary responsibility to our pensioners, the city of Altoona, and the taxpayers. Well, and then one other thing when the RFPs came out, last year we went more proactive. Chris Gable, our financial advisor, had retired. We had two new people take over, Kim Gilday and Brian Eulinger. They came to us with a proposal that Wells Fargo principal had started in July of 2019, where they went into a big IRT type development for pensions like ours. All the assets that they could come up with, it was a bigger company, and it was still part of Wells Fargo, but it was another branch of the Wells Fargo division. With David Hill came and gave us a proposal on November the 18th of last year. I had an emergency meeting with our board after that. We approved hiring the IRT program. On January 27th, we signed the papers for that. Now, this wasn't included in the RFP. What happened in the RFP is they went back and used the record of the past 5-10 years of the old investment style to have us compared to the companies that were issuing the new. They're all their good stuff. And that's what happened. Instead of taking into consideration about the IRT program, which I might add that I just found out today, that from March to today's date, our pension increased 24.5%. 24.5% from March to today, for a total of $42,872,868. Now, my proposal, after offsetting all that, setting a background, is that Marquette is a fine company, big company. I don't know how they do their asset allocations. I guess they're going to find out. But my proposal would be, since the fire and the non-uniform chose Marquette to be their manager, I propose that we be allowed to keep the Wells Fargo IoT for 1 year. Place the two funds against each other. City can't lose. You have competition on both ends. Whoever does the best, they do the same. One does worse, then next year you reapproach this. Don't have to have an RFP. So you underperformed, you overperformed, you performed the same, we're going to give it another shot. But if the city's making money, that's what we're concerned about, putting money in the coffers for the pension fund. Competition, to me, is the best way to do that. And that would be my proposal. In closing, I wish to thank you for your attention and consideration in this matter. And if you have any questions for me, I'll try to answer them.
I just had one question. So, like, back toward the beginning of your presentation, it sounded to me like you were saying that you took a more conservative approach to investing so that the ups and downs would be, like, more or less planned for the long haul.
Right.
Did I hear you correctly
That's
on
correct, yes. That's why we went with 55-45 instead of the 60-40 or
that? Okay.
whatever other, and our investments were of such a nature that we could keep an eye on them, ask the manager questions, and if we didn't like it, and I told Chris a couple of times, I don't like this company, we don't want them. We get rid of them and get another company in.
Okay.
I mean, we're actively involved in our pension, but that's why I brought the proposal tonight. I wanted to explain why we didn't. It just wasn't because we like Wells Fargo. It was because of the things that we did. And my two representatives, Rod Bonner and Mitch Cooper, came back, and they're the ones that brought this to light, and we researched it. We're all retired policemen, detectives, so we know how to do some research and check on things, and that's what we did. For us and for the city would be to try to have these two companies. And we asked Mr. I forget his name, from Marquette, if it would be a different savings, because the way their scale is based was on $100 million. $50 million is 20%, $75 million is 15%, and so on. Well, we dropped their portion at $60 million. He said it would cost $115,000 to do that. But if you check their schedule, $50 million is still, you're going to be paying 20%. So the only thing you're going to lose maybe is the other 10% on the $60 million.
Thank you.
Does anybody else on council have anything?
Mr. and Mrs. Mayor, this is Jesse.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Taking a look here at the principal. Thank you. Taking a look here at I read both the RFPs that were submitted by Principal and Wells Fargo with Kim's advisement. Looks like for $100 million, which is approximately what the bids were, and the RFP process included the plans collectively, the three plans at about $100 million. With admin and investment expense, would be about $630,000. Admin was coming in at about 25 basis points, with a weighted average investment expense of about 40 basis points. Marquette's proposal, which includes a $20,000 cost for custodial service in their second round RFP, has an total annual fees for all three of the city's pension plans at $454,000. So you're talking, well in excess of $100,000 a year in savings from that standpoint for all three of these plans. Should all three transfer to Marquette and Associates? And just a couple of points. So I would say that custodial services were bid in the RFP submitted by Marquette. Who that custodian is at this time has not yet been determined, but they have provided a cost with their proposal as far as what that cost would look like for all three of the plans to convert to Marquette and Associates. And to John and Terry, look, I wish I were there to talk about this in person and honor you folks for coming out tonight, because I know that this is a passionate topic for you both, being active members of the board. So I lament that I'm not there in person this evening. I think someone that's in the business that does some municipal pension work. The police pension plan, we have 21-year-olds that are officers. This plan's going to be around a long time, like 100 years. A 55-45 allocation is probably too conservative. And of the conservative allocation of 55 equity, 45 fixed income, about 10% of the current police pension board allocation are in hedge funds, which are very risky equity allocations, and they're very expensive, or at least they were within some of the most recent quarters. And yeah, the returns may be 24% this year, but we've cut pension checks for the MMO at the end of every quarter, one of which was at the end of March after the big equity market sell-off of being down 40%. So, I think to kind of give an evaluation on the plan as it's been with principal for the short term, it's really hard to get a basis for consistent and steadiness of returns over a year's time or a 9 months time. But we have 23 years worth of data that not just the police pension plan, but statistically speaking, all three of these plans have very much underperformed the indices as pointed out by Marquette. So I would, to my fellow peers on council, I would strongly urge and support that we do transition this plan, the police pension plan, to Marquette and Associates.
Thank you, Councilman Ickes. Anybody else? All right. Thank you both for coming out this evening.
Thank you.
All right, next we will move on to the public comment. The number to dial will be on the screen, and when prompted, please give your name and address for the record, and we ask that you please keep your comments to under 5 minutes.
anyone that wants to speak, please announce your name.
Okay, seeing none, we will close the floor for public comment and move on to the resolutions. Linda?
Item A is approving the minutes of the Altoona City Council meeting held Monday, November 9, 2020. Item B is authorizing the city to enter into an agreement with PennDOT for the DOT grants online reporting system in order to file the required liquid fuels forms annually, including the, but not limited to, the MS 965, 329, and 999 forms, and authorizing the mayor to execute all documents associated with the agreement and for the city clerk to attest to same. Item C is amending the CDBG, 2018 CDBG program, transferring $6,006.04 from the Youth Empowerment Program to Family Services Homeless Shelter Rehabilitation for the rehabilitation of the structure at 2300 North Branch Avenue to create a 35-bed family shelter to serve persons with special needs, the homeless, and battered spouses. Item D is amending the 2019 CDBG program, transferring $25,000.19 from the Center for Independent Living of South Central Pennsylvania Home Accessibility Project and $25,000 from the Nehemiah After School Program to Family Services Homeless Shelter Rehabilitation Project. Item E is amending the 2020 Community Development Block Grant Program, correcting the fiscal year 2020 CDBG allocation from the Department of HUD from $1,643,245 to the corrected amount of $1,643,051, and further authorizing the mayor to execute all documents. Item F is amending the 2020 Home Grant Program, correcting the fiscal year allocation from the Department of HUD from $353,129 to the correct amount of $353,056, and further authorizing the mayor to execute all documents. Item G is appointing Ted Beam of 1207 Adams Avenue to the Zoning Hearing Board to fill the unexpired term of Donna Royer. Said term shall expire the first Monday of January 2026. Item H, pursuant to Ordinance number 5771, Electrical Examiners Board, to establish an Electrical and Plumber Examiners Board, and Ordinance number 5772, Plumbing Board, to establish an Electrical and Plumbing Examiners Board, adopted October 14, 2020, wherein City Council created a single Electrical and Plumbing Examiners Board. The following individuals are hereby appointed to the Electrical and Plumbing Examiners Board as follows. Licensed electrician Thomas Schultz, said term expires January 2026. Stu Sellers, said term expires January 2025. Christopher Morana, said term expires January 2024. Licensed plumbers. Mike Seidel, said term expires January 2026. General contractor Lou Ventura, said term expires January 2026. Item I is confirming City Council's authority to direct the selection of police pension fund investment, management, and custodial services providers, and appointing the city manager to act as controller for purposes of membership on the city's fire pension fund board and non-uniform pension fund board. Approving the city council meeting. Item J is approving the city council meeting schedule for the year 2021 in accordance with the Home Rule Charter and Administrative Code of the City of Altoona. Item K is authorizing the extension of the term of exemptions, deductions, abatements, and credits for real property, earned income tax, net profits, mercantile and business privilege taxes within a specific geographic area in the City of Altoona, Blair County, designated as the Keystone Opportunity Expansion Zone or Keystone Opportunity Improvement Zone, in order to foster economic opportunities, stimulate industrial, commercial, and residential improvements, and prevent physical and infrastructure deterioration within areas of the City of Altoona upon certain terms and condition. This rescinds Resolution number 70-20, which was adopted July 8, 2020. Item L is approving a repository bid in the amount of $50, submitted by Dennis Garlock of 128 East First Avenue for property located at 109 Lloyd Street, and further authorizing the city manager to execute the taxing district form. Are there any additions, deletions, or anything that needs to be pulled for separate vote? Hearing none, I will call for the consent vote. Vice Mayor Butterbaugh.
Yes.
Councilman Kashadi.
Yes.
Councilman Carper.
Yes.
Councilman Ickes.
Yes.
Councilwoman Jordan is absent. Councilman Kelly.
Yes.
Mayor Pacifico.
Yes.
And the vote passes 6-0. We have 3 ordinances. The first ordinance for adoption was introduced by the governing body. It's an ordinance of the City of Altoona in the County of Blair, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, appropriating specific sums estimated to be required for specific purposes of the municipal government hereinafter set forth during the year 2021. Is there a motion for adoption?
Can we do that as a governing body also?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Sure.
So we don't need a do we still need a second?
I'll second.
Okay,
Will second. However, do you want
Governing
singular
body.
or plural?
there you go.
We'll do either.
Okay, and I will call for the roll for a vote. Vice Mayor Butterbaugh.
Yes.
Councilman Kashadi.
Yes.
Councilman Carper.
Yes.
Councilman Ickes.
Yes.
Councilwoman Jordan is absent. Councilman Kelly.
Yes.
Mayor Pacifico.
Yes.
And the vote passes 6-0. The second ordinance for adoption was introduced by Vice Mayor Butterbaugh. It's an ordinance of the City of Altoona incurring lease rental debt as defined in the Pennsylvania Local Government Unit Debt Act in a principal amount not to exceed $7,500,000, evidenced by its guarantee of 100% of the payments due under a debt obligation of the Altoona Water Authority issued to the Pennsylvania Infrastructure Investment Authority in connection with the water system operated by the authority, and pay related expenses, authorizing a guarantee agreement by and among the City of Altoona as guarantor, the authority, and Penvest as lender, securing the debt obligation, pledging certain water system lease revenues of the city and the full faith credit and taxing power of the city in support of its guarantee, appointing a sinking fund depository in connection with such guarantee, and authorizing related actions and documents. Is there a motion for adoption? Second.
Second.
This ordinance was moved for adoption by Councilman Kashadi and seconded by Vice Mayor Butterbaugh, and I will call for the vote. Vice Mayor Butterbaugh.
Yes.
Councilman Kashadi.
Yes.
Councilman Carper.
Yes.
Councilman Ickes.
Yes.
Councilwoman Jordan is absent. Councilman Kelly.
Yes.
Mayor Pacifico.
Yes.
And the vote passes 6-0. And we have a final ordinance for adoption, which was introduced by Councilman Ickes, and it's an ordinance of the City of Altoona incurring lease rental debt as defined in the Pennsylvania Local Government Unit Debt Act in a principal amount not to exceed $36,615,700, evidenced by its guarantee of 100% of the payment due under a debt obligation of the Altoona Water Authority issued to Penvest in connection with the sewer system operated by the authority, and pay related expenses, authorizing a guarantee agreement by and among the City of Altoona as guarantor, the authority, and Penvest as lender, securing the debt obligation, pledging certain sewer system lease revenues of the city, the full faith credit and taxing power of the city in support of its guarantee, appointing a sinking fund depository in connection with such guarantee, and authorizing related actions and documents. Is there a motion for adoption?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
This ordinance was moved for adoption by Councilman Carpenter and seconded by Mayor Pacifico. And I will call the roll for a vote. Vice Mayor Butterbaugh.
Yes.
Councilman Kashadi.
Yes.
Councilman Carper.
Yes.
Councilman Ickes.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Jordan is absent. Councilman Kelly.
Yes.
Mayor Pacifico.
Yes.
And the vote passes 6-0.
Okay, move on to council discussion items. Start with you, Councilman Carper.
I don't have a ton. I did want to acknowledge the nurses and medical professionals who held the vigil on November the 19th, I believe, for those who have lost their lives to COVID in Blair County, and thank the medical professionals who continue to be the front line against the pandemic. And I'd like everybody to keep them in their thoughts and their prayers as we enter what's likely going to be a pretty difficult period over the next couple of weeks, maybe month or so. This is not this is going to be a hard holiday season for a lot of families, not just here in Blair County, but across the country. So I'd like it if we could just keep everybody in our thoughts and prayers and continue to practice good pandemic protocol, wear your masks, distance when you can, and just generally be responsible. Thank you.
Agreed. Thanks. Councilman Butterbaugh.
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Councilman Kashadi.
Nothing at this time. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Kelly.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on what Councilman Carper was talking about with the pandemic and all the ill effects that COVID has had on us. And one of the problems, of course, has been that there's a number of nonprofit organizations that have not been able to do fundraising, that have not been able to raise the funds that they use to do good things in our communities. And I would just ask people to keep organizations like the Salvation Army in mind. I mean, I've seen statistics where they're saying that their kettle drive may be down 50% nationwide. When you put money in that Salvation Army Red Kettle, that stays here in the local community. So I just would ask people that during this holiday season that they remember those charitable organizations and perhaps be able to do something to help them out. That's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Ickes.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks everyone for working through quite the year of 2020. I just want to take the time to remind folks to do their part to be careful, to look after yourselves and your family, and wish you all the best and a Merry Christmas and hopefully a Happy New Year in 2021.
Definitely. Thank
That's
you.
all.
Take questions from the media now, Bill.
I heard reports that there are COVID issues with the police and fire department. Can anybody make any explanation on that?
Sure. Yeah, we have city employees who've been diagnosed positive with COVID. We're following the CDC protocols in terms of if employees had close contact in terms of quarantining or requiring a negative test before they return to work. We're doing everything we can to try to provide testing or make testing available to employees. Chief Heilman's working on that, but we're part of the community, and our first responders in particular are in the community every day. So just as it's affecting our city, it's affecting our workers.
Can you say how many people in each department have?
I can tell you tomorrow because the number tends to change from day to day, but I think we Chief Heilman said it would be about 6.5% of our employees percentage-wise, and I'll get the exact numbers to you tomorrow, Bill.
Okay. Is there any report on the possibility of a grant for the transportation center?
Yeah, DCD, or I'm sorry, the CFA, they decided to hold off until the spring on awarding the multimodal grants.
Oh, so no, there's no, it's not either positive or negative, really.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell by the resolution, but did John Carnicella get his wish, or did he not, with the police pension? Or was it were they all transferred to Marquette?
Yes.
All to Marquette? Okay. Does anybody, I know Jesse talked about it, does anybody else want to say anything about that?
I mean, I appreciate their passion for the board and the responsibility that they hold as sacred of being on that board and protecting the pension. But we on council, we also have that same responsibility to the taxpayers and to the retirees. And if Harrisburg is not going to give municipalities the tools they need in the form of municipal pension reform, then we need to do what we can with the little authority that we have in order to find ways to make the most out of those pension funds.
We had a good process, Bill. I mean, it took 6 months of hard work. We started with 23 first-round proposals. We narrowed it down to 11. We interviewed in person the 5 finalists. I've got 2 bankers boxes worth of proposals. We had a 7-person evaluation team. Each member of the evaluation team read all of those proposals. So it was an open and fair competition. And, we don't give participation awards here. I mean, we had to pick one firm, and the fire and non-uniform pension boards selected Marquette without any issue. And again, I don't want to get into the specific disagreements I have with John, but we had a process, and the process selected what I think is going to be a good firm. And whatever we do, we just have to do better the next 23 years in managing our pension investments, because that's taxpayer money that goes into these funds. And the better our investments do, the less we have to reach into taxpayers' pockets, and the more resources we have available to pay the employees who are working on the streets today.
Do you know?
Bill, this is Jesse. If I may, when the RFPs went out, the bids were for all 3 pension plans, and the process would be that we would have a firm that would work, across all 3 of the pension plans to provide their professional money management and evaluation. And I know that John had alluded to this a bit earlier in terms of quote making money, but one of the really difficult aspects on defined benefit plans comes to handling risk, which is based upon the investments that are inside of the portfolio, but there's also other risks. There's actuarial risk that takes place based upon the people that are in the plan. These plans are very complicated. This is not a 401k or in the municipal government space, a 457 plan where you shake the hand of the employee at their retirement party and they walk away with their bag of money and we thank them for their service. These plans have to be around for people to live off of. So when we're in an unfunded status like we are, investment performance is very important, but ultimately on the defined benefit space, you don't invest your way out of the unfunded status. You have to put money into the plan, which we've been doing. So, look, the decrease in cost is a big factor. The fact that it's going to be, quite the, well over $100 and some thousand in savings on these 3 plans is a huge benefit. And, you know, Marquette and their background, they work quite a bit in the public sector space. I feel very confident to their professional money management, and I look forward to working with them.
Thanks. The budget, it's the same as, there's no changes, right?
No changes.
Okay, thank you, that's all I have. That's all.
No tax increases,
Wait,
not
before-
even a
Before you drop
tiny
the
one.
gavel, Mr. Mayor, I just want to note that this is our last meeting before the end of the year. So to you, to our employees, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Indeed.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you too. Meeting is adjourned.
Happy almost 1-year anniversary, Manager Deck.